Yeah.
And it's just really impressive with the museum, just how seriously this community takes its history. So I'm going to do my best to give you a good program.
He brought us letters of George Schlesman, who was Mayor of Clyde. And he was on a B-17 and crashed and became a German POW for years.
So, all right, so let's go ahead and get started. John McIntyre Lemmon was only known footage, really not even a photograph, it's a print that came out of a state of Ohio Bar Association book from the 1890s. A nice image of it. Born July 25th, 1839 in Townsend Township, Sandusky County. His father's name was Clyde Lemmon. His mother was Emily Amanda McIntyre, hence his middle name McIntyre. I remember correctly, his mother was Scots and his father was Irish. So if you give you some sense, the guy was probably stubborn. But he was a farmer's son who really had an knack for education. Of course, this was not the Black Swamp, but it wasn't far from it. In 1839, this was a pretty unsettled part of the country. Farm life wasn't exactly easy. But John did his fair share, but he was also, like I said, really had a knack for education. In 1857, he actually graduated from school and became a school teacher, and he worked as such here in the community for several years. Interestingly, John decided that what he was really interested in was law. He wanted to be an attorney or a lawyer. And it turned out that his uncle was friends with James Proctor Knott, who was the Attorney General of Missouri at that time. And this is the late 1850s, just at the cusp of the Civil War. And he worked things out that he got to study in James Proctor Knott's office for about 6 months. Now, while he was there, he met a few kind of important individuals who became important in the Civil War, including Major General Sterling Price, who was a Confederate general from Missouri, and Clyde Jackson, who was the governor of Missouri. What was interesting was John Lemmon's political sentiments for those with a wide-awake Lincoln Republican. The men he studied law with were out-and-out secessionists. So it was really interesting to see kind of what his education was and how he turned out. In 1860, he was in Missouri for about 6 months, and then his mother became very, very sick. So he returned home to Sandusky County. His mother died very shortly after his return here, and he decided to move to Fremont, which 6-7 miles down the road wasn't too big of a move. But he still wanted to study law, so he started studying law with a gentleman named Joseph R. Bartlett. Joseph Bartlett would go on to a distinguished career in the Civil War. He became a lieutenant colonel of the 49th Ohio Infantry and was a Republican. So as John Lemmon is kind of starting to become involved with politics in Fremont, of course, the big thing going on in 1860 is the presidential election. It was quite a wild race. Abraham Lincoln, as the flag says, was running as the Republican nominee against several Democratic nominees. There was Stephen Douglas, John Bell, there's one more.
Breckinridge.
Breckinridge, John C. Breckinridge. Of course, consistent with his principles, John Lemmon was a wide awake, so he became involved with the Lincoln campaign in Fremont. And the head of the Lincoln campaign in Fremont was somebody else who we're going to become very familiar with, Ralph Buckland. At the time, Ralph Buckland was an attorney, as was Joseph Bartlett, and Buckland's office was actually the local headquarters for the campaign. So John became very acquainted with kind of all these movers and shakers in the Republican Party during this campaign, which would really kind of pay him dividends a year or so later when the war broke out. So Fort Sumter occurred April 12 and 13, 1861. John was sleeping in his quarters when he heard his friends outside raising the ruckus that Fort Sumter had been fired upon. Almost immediately, the Fremont Weekly Journal put out a special edition, basically calling the men to war, summoning the call to arms. There was a meeting in Fremont to raise a volunteer company. The two gentlemen that shared the meeting, no surprise, were Joseph Bartlett and Ralph Buckland, they keep reappearing there. No surprise also that John Lemmon was one of the first to enlist out of Fremont. He joined in Company F of the 8th Ohio Infantry about a week and a half after Fort Sumter. So he laid down his scholastic studies pretty quickly and took up arms. This first company out of Fremont, they called themselves the Fremont Guards. So this regiment, they mustered in at Camp Cleveland in late April 1861 and then moved down to Camp Dennison to drill. During this time, it was interesting, the initial regiments that went out had a 90-day enlistment. So they enlisted in April, the intent was they would get out in July or August. Pretty quickly, the War Department figured out that this thing isn't going to be over 90 days. We need troops for a longer period than that. And there was efforts made within the 8th Ohio to turn into a 3-year regiment. I don't think that Lemmon had any particular problem with that, but there was one problem. He had developed a bad case of measles. So he chose to not re-enlist with the 8th Ohio and actually just served out his 90-day enlistment and then came back to Fremont to recover his health. This wasn't the last time that John Lemmon's health would interfere with his military duties. It kind of becomes a recurring theme you see in the correspondence was that his health would break down after a period of time. So anyway, he served until July of 1861 and came home. But later in the fall of 1861, Ralph Buckland received a commission from the governor of the state of Ohio to raise a regiment in Sandusky County. That regiment would become the 72nd Ohio Infantry. Most of the companies came from Sandusky County, although there were troops raised in some neighboring counties, Erie and Medina. There was a company out of Wood County, which is my hometown. What was interesting was when the regiment went down to Camp Chase in January 1862, they didn't have enough men to go into the field. They had somewhere around 850. Well, the minimum was about 1,000. And what had happened was there was a number of companies that they were just short. They had 75 or 80 men and then they needed 100. So what happened was there was another regiment, the 52nd Ohio, which I think organized 3 separate times where it actually went into the field. But there was a company that had been organized in Cincinnati for the 52nd Ohio. That company was attached to the 72nd and went off to war with them. But they were all from Cincinnati. So it was kind of an interesting twist. John Lemmon joined Company B as a private, but he did a lot to help recruit the regiment, especially the company and the regiment. He went around to various communities and schoolhouses and meeting houses and made speeches in favor of enlisting and whatnot. But was still private. He also had developed a close relationship with the editor of the Fremont Journal, a gentleman named Isaac Keeler. And after the regiment left Fremont in January 1862, he started sending back regular weekly letters that were published in the newspaper. And he wrote those under the name 76. Now, I discovered these letters back in the 2006-2007 time frame. I remember reading through them. Of course, you don't know who 76 is right off the bat. I mean, I knew it was a gentleman in the 72nd Ohio. I figured out it was Company B, but I couldn't figure out who he was. It wasn't until I had almost finished indexing the newspaper that I stumbled across this little blurb on page 3 when he had come home on leave. And the editor mentioned our correspondent 76, and then put in parentheses, John Lemmon, had returned home to Fremont for a period of time. I was like, oh my gosh, that's who this guy is. So it was like 2 little sentences in the newspaper that took to figure out who he was. Moving on. 72nd Ohio was left the state in February 1862. Interestingly enough, when they left Cincinnati, they didn't have any weapons. They were clothed, they were equipped, partially, but they had no guns. They didn't receive their guns until they were actually in Kentucky. I've seen some accounts that said they didn't receive their guns until they were on the boats going down toward Shiloh, which doesn't surprise me. But all that to say is that they went into theater in February 1862, and then they had their first engagement barely 2 months later. When we talk about Shiloh, there's actually another engagement before Shiloh that is maybe a little more important into the history of the regiment. The state roster calls it the Battle of Crump's Landing. What's interesting is it was fought nowhere near Crump's Landing, so the name doesn't make any sense, but it was fought fought 2 days before the main battle of Shiloh. And what had happened was, portions of the 72nd Ohio were out in a drill field, and some Confederate cavalry were making a nuisance, and Major Leroy Crockett decided that, we needed to go out there and deal with the Confederates. The problem was he only took one company when he did it. It turned out to be Lemmon's Company B. Well, Company B goes out to chase the Confederates, and pretty soon they're surrounded by these Confederate cavalrymen, and it was quite a little skirmish. Of course, news of Company B's plight makes its way back to Colonel Buckland, who I can imagine was not at all thrilled with Crockett taking the company out, and they were really quite poorly drilled at that point. And so the rest of the 72nd kind of comes to their rescue, and the Confederate cavalry moves off. But what kind of makes this interesting was John Lemmon wrote a 2-column letter about this engagement, and then like a half column about the actual battle of Shiloh, at least when he did his first report. So to him, it was a much more important engagement. But it has certainly a direct impact on Shiloh, because it was clear, the Confederates are in the area. There was lots of charges made in the newspaper that Sherman's men were surprised. I have trouble believing the 72nd were surprised. They'd been dealing with Confederates for multiple days prior to the battle occurring. This is a picture of a gentleman named Freedom Gates. He was a sergeant in the 72nd Ohio who was killed at the first day of Shiloh. So Shiloh itself, we have the regimental colors there that are at the Sandusky County Museum hanging up on the wall. Interesting story about those. That little engagement that took place on April 4th, well, the color bearer was a guy named Gustavus Gesner, who was a sergeant at the time. Those colors were his responsibility. Well, unfortunately, in that little skirmish, he was wounded. So on April 6th, the morning of April 6th, when the Confederates started charging towards the 72nd Ohio's position, the men come out of their tents. Well, Gesner's back in the hospital, but the regimental colors are cased and furled in his tent. There was a captain, I think it was Sam Snyder, who was actually had been relieved of duty for shooting his gun in camp. I think he shot his pistol in camp. So he couldn't command his company. Well, he actually knew that the colors were there in this guy's tent, and what he did was he, of course, took him out of the tent and stuck him in a hospital wagon. Well, the hospital wagon, of course, started to go away from the battle, but apparently didn't get very far because the Confederates captured the wagon, and of course then captured the colors. So that was how the 72nd Ohio lost their colors at Shiloh. It wasn't lost on the battle line, it was lost on the Hammer Purdy Road, and it was left in a wagon. I think Snyder put them on there, no one else really knew they were there, they were just kind of forgotten. But there's a great story about how those colors were recovered, but in the interest of time, it's in the book. Okay. I'll just read the book. It's in the book. Suffice it to say, on the morning of April 6th, around 7 a.m., a brigade of troops under Patrick Claiborne, who some of you may have heard of, a rather notable Confederate general, attacked the Buckland's brigade, which consisted of 3 regiments, the 48th, 70th, and 72nd Ohio. Buckland was a brigade commander at this point. He had already been kind of bumped up from regimental command, but very shortly after the battle began, the lieutenant colonel of the 72nd Ohio was shot down. So Buckland felt the need to kind of retake over the regiment. And so while he's listed as brigade commander, he's really the regimental commander at Shiloh. The 72nd fought extremely well at Shiloh. They held their position for almost 2 hours. They eventually exhausted their ammunition with very heavy casualties. They were up 130. And then commenced falling back towards the Tennessee River. In this engagement, John Lemmon was actually wounded on 3 separate occasions. None of the 3 wounds were very serious, although the last one knocked him out. The first 2, I think he was nicked by bullets on the first day of the battle. And then on the second day, when the Union Army was attacking the Confederates and finally driving them away, a Confederate shell had exploded in a tree nearby and dropped a limb on him and basically knocked him out. So he was took 3 separate wounds in the Battle of Shiloh. Suffice it to say, his letter writing ceased for a period of time after the battle. So I think he wrote about Shiloh and about this Crump's Landing engagement, and then there were about 3 or 4 months where there were no letters from him. In that time, though, the 72nd really earned a sterling reputation with General Sherman. Now, Sherman's division had a lot of problems with troops running. Some Ohio regiments were among that. The 53rd Ohio was kind of singled out by Sherman after the battle. The story goes that he had the regiment assembled at dress parade, got in front of them, and basically said, if you SOBs run again, I'm going to turn my cannon and fire on you instead of the Confederates. So not off to a real good start. The 72nd Ohio, of course, got mixed up in some of those newspaper stories that, there were men bayoneted in their tents, and I mean, just really a lot of irresponsible journalism. But really, they had done quite well, and Sherman recognized that. And for the rest of their association, which lasted until late 1863, the 72nd Ohio was one of Sherman's go-to regiments. When he had a tough job, he went to Colonel Buckland and Colonel Buckland's men. So he had a lot of respect for them. Colonel Buckland also received a lot of acclaim for his leadership at Shiloh, and would eventually be commissioned Brigadier General later in 1862. John Lemmon received a kind of unusual honor himself. Remember, he went into the war as a private. Most times when you go into the war as a private, there's a gradual progression in grade, a private and corporal and sergeant and first sergeant, or maybe something, a regimental sergeant major or something like that. But he skipped right over from private to second lieutenant. So he received essentially a battlefield commission, which gives you some indication of how appreciated his efforts were at Shiloh. It was very unusual, and for them to do that, they had to jump right over a whole bunch of sergeants who probably felt they were more in line for that promotion. Never heard a word protesting.
Sherman put this promotion together?
No, I think this came from Buckland.
Do you think it's because of his prior association before?
Well, I'm sure it did hurt. I'm sure it did hurt. But the fact was, the man had he'd been wounded 3 times in battle and conducted himself from all reports with a great deal of valor. So I think it was a deserving promotion, probably eased along by political connections. Then we get to a kind of interesting portion of the 72nd Ohio service. They had this tremendous battle at Shiloh, and then they engaged in essentially a siege campaign against Corinth, which really amounted much ado about nothing. I mean, they advanced maybe a mile or so a day, and were constantly laying breastworks, and really got them discouraged. It was a Union victory, but it was rather discouraging to the men. It just, everything took forever. After winning the siege of Corinth, that was at the beginning of June 1862, the 72nd Ohio was sent to occupy the city of Memphis. Now, the city of Memphis had fallen to the Union Navy in June 6, 1862, and it was a pretty wild town. It was completely secessionist in sentiment. I'd say wildly secessionist in sentiment. River towns on the Mississippi River were somewhat international in flavor because of the amount of trade that they had in New Orleans especially, but many of the cities up and down the Mississippi had a lot of colorful characters coming and going. One of the things that quickly happened in Memphis was there was a quick breakdown in civil authority. The police, of course, had pretty much disappeared. So you had this wild open town with, being not too far from the Confederate lines, they're starting to develop this illicit trade in cotton for drugs. I mean, drugs from the standpoint of medical, not weed and things like that. But essentially, there were Confederate citizens coming out from the interior of Mississippi and Tennessee to Memphis with cotton, which then they would sell to cotton traders for whatever goods they wanted. Of course, the cotton traders made a fortune selling it in the North because, of course, the Confederacy had ceased trade with the Union, and actually they'd ceased trade in cotton with anybody. So, as you can imagine, the 72nd Ohio gets into this situation where there's lots of money to be made, civil authorities very lax, and they're put in place as the provost marshals, essentially the military police for the town. It was an interesting dichotomy. It was easy service from the standpoint they're not getting paid, which is pretty advantageous. They had barracks. They actually had nice barracks. They're right along the Mississippi River. On the other hand, they're dealing with essentially the criminal element all the time and all the temptations that are in. Of course, there was a very roaring business in alcohol. There was a roaring business in vice, whether it's But John Lemmon, I don't think he liked Memphis at all. If you read some of the letters in the book, he says this is exactly the kind of place that someone who likes a law-abiding lifestyle would never come to. It's just really quite a bad place. The thing I wanted to touch on here was that one of the more interesting aspects for me about the Civil War was, of course, the use of alcohol by the troops. And for the 72nd Ohio, what they found was that when the troops were stationed like in Memphis or something like that, they had a lot more in the way of morale problems, and the drinking was just out of control. The drinking actually resulted in 2 soldiers in the 72nd being killed. One of them, I think, was killed, in July of 1862 by the provost marshals. It wasn't the 72nd Ohio. But he got roaring drunk and was basically carousing around town and making a nuisance of himself. They told him to stop, and I'm sure he said something not repeatable here, and was shot and ended up dying. The other one I want to read is actually Lemmon's description of what happened. This is in November of 1862. He says, "The most shocking tragedy occurred in the city yesterday in the shooting of a member of Company H of our regiment by a comrade. When the regiment was passing through the city, the 2 men scrabbled from their company and having whiskey in their possession became intoxicated and quarrelsome. The facts as I got them are that one used very insulting language towards the other, and then the latter man seized the former and threw him down on the ground and choked him. The provost guard here interfered and separated them. One man threatened to shoot the other on the way to camp, but was prevented by the guard who sent the other man on his way, and then detained the man who made the threat for a period of time. The gentleman pursued Huber, who was the man who kind of started the fracas, and when he got up to him, he placed his gun against his back and fired, killing him instantly. The cork was in the muzzle of the gun, and this, with the proximity to the unfortunate Huber, bursted the barrel 6 inches from the end. The gentleman was Frederick Mittler who did this. He was immediately arrested by the guard and lodged in prison. Huber was buried today." So there's another instance of just troops kind of getting out of hand. So when later in December 1862, the regiment actually went on a campaign, I'm sure Lemmon was like, "Oh, thank God we're out of that town." But they would keep coming back to Memphis. Memphis was just, it's kind of like a bad penny that keeps coming back. Next slide. Grant's campaign against Vicksburg. So Grant had been scheming and concocting ways to take Vicksburg for months. It was a really tough nut to crack, tough assignment. In December 1862, Sherman had taken an expedition down to the bluffs above Vicksburg and tried to take it by force. It was a complete disaster. Suffered tremendous casualties. It was a place called Chickasaw Bluffs. One regiment from Ohio, the 16th Ohio, lost half their numbers in the assault. Of course, after that they had no use for Sherman. But Grant was determined he was going to find a way to take Vicksburg. And it took him a while to figure out really what he needed to do was what we see up here. This is essentially the map of his April through July campaign against Vicksburg. What it amounted to is moving his forces further south to cross the Mississippi at an unguarded or lightly guarded point, ferry the men over by boat, and then, of course, march to the rear of Vicksburg. And in the process, they went all the way to Jackson. Now, where the 72nd Ohio fits in with this? Well, they were part of Sherman's Corps, which is the 15th. And essentially, they went down the river, crossed over here, and went all the way across Mississippi. Now, the 72nd Ohio was only engaged in one battle during this campaign. It was at the Battle of Jackson, and they were very lightly engaged. They took very few casualties. And then, of course, they marched towards the rear of Vicksburg, and soon the siege of Vicksburg began. Now, the 72nd Ohio was present for all of these actions, but for the most part, were not heavily engaged. Now, they did take part in the first assault on Vicksburg, but I think that they had casualties of fewer than 10 men, so they were not, as I said, not heavily engaged. As the siege progressed, I think it went on 47 days. About a month into it, the Union High Command started getting intelligence that the Confederates were gathering a relief force to relieve Pemberton, who was penned up at Vicksburg, and it was under Joe Johnston. Sherman was given the task of making sure Johnston got nowhere near So he took a large portion of his corps and I think a few other divisions of others and set up along this river here called the Big Black River. The 72nd Ohio was given kind of the post of honor. They were the front regiment of that line, and that was something that they took a great deal of pride in that Sherman had chosen them specifically. Of course, the siege of Vicksburg ends famously on July 4th, 1863, a day which they did not celebrate in Vicksburg, I think, until World War II.
Yeah, 1943 or 44.
43 or 44. But of course, the men in the 72nd Ohio were pretty exhausted, but delighted that they had helped with this really landmark victory. So I think we covered most of this already. In July 1863, John Lemmon received another promotion. He was promoted to captain and actually transferred out of Company B, transferred over to Company I, and that's where he remained for the rest of the war. But it was also during the summer of 1863 that his health started to fail again. We talked about in April of 61 how he got a case of measles shortly after enlisting. He also became sick here in Vicksburg. Now, this was not at all unusual. The Vicksburg area was kind of a boggy, unhealthy swamp, lots of mosquitoes. The water wasn't very good, much like Coleman. And so it wasn't exactly unusual. Grant's Army had a lot of problems with health in this area, but it hit John Lemmon particularly hard enough that they actually allowed him to go home in November of 1863 for a period of time. But we're progressing into the war. Vicksburg has fallen. Grant has moved east to Chattanooga to help raise the siege of Chattanooga. Sherman goes with him. But the 72nd Ohio is left behind in the district of Memphis. They were essentially back on Provost Marshal garrison duty. And in January 1864, the regiment re-enlisted for 3 more years. You think they would have had enough, the first time around, but they enlisted for 3 more years, and then came home for a 30-day veterans furlough. John Lemmon, of course, re-enlisted and helped sign up new recruits, but I think he used his time very well because he married the love of his life, Annie Cobble, who was from Perkins, Ohio. He married her while he was home on leave on this veterans furlough, and they remained married until Captain Lemmon's death in 1895, so they were married 31 years. The 72nd Ohio returns to Memphis in, I think, March or April of 1864, and soon took part in the disastrous Guntown expedition. Sometimes it's also known as the Battle of Bryce's Crossroads, or Sturgis's disaster, and lots of different names for it. Captain Lemmon, however, due to his poor health, was assigned to court-martial duty in Memphis. So essentially, he continued to write letters to the Memphis Journal, but they lost some of their immediacy at this point because he's not out in the field with the regiment, but it actually probably saved his life, as we'll talk about it at Bryce's Crossroads. Now, he would stay on court-martial duty in Memphis until January 1865. So, Bryce's Crossroads of the Guntown disaster. We have a couple of photographs up here. This is Captain Leroy Moore. He was captured. At this point, hospital steward adjusted the sketch. We know the chevrons on his sleeve that indicates he's a hospital steward. And then this is Henry Jervis Potter. All 3 of these men were captured at Bryce's Crossroads. I could talk a long time about Bryce's Crossroads, one of my favorite battles, but in the interest of time, I'll just make it short and sweet. Essentially what had happened was General Sturgis had gathered, the Union commander gathered a force of about 10,000 men, and basically set off into northern Mississippi to keep Nathan Bedford Forrest busy. General Sherman was petrified that Forrest was going to come gallivanting out of Mississippi and attack his very vulnerable supply lines in Tennessee, which were supporting his campaign against Atlanta. So the mission of the 72nd Ohio was basically to entertain, so to speak, General Forrest. General Forrest, I think, had more entertainment on this raid than they did. They got involved in a battle at a place called Bryce's Crossroads. It's kind of in I wouldn't say desolate place in Mississippi, but a very rural, out-of-the-way place in Mississippi. It still is.
It still is.
There's church in the corner and a better graveyard on the right.
Yeah, there's not much there, but they got involved in a fight there. Initially, it was Sturgis's cavalrymen that had the bulk of the fighting. It was, of course, it's June 10th, 1864. Can you imagine the weather on June 10th, 1864 in Mississippi? It was probably in the 90s. I'm sure did work. You start out with 300 men, and 75 of them would make it to the battle line. The rest of the regiment was strung out behind you for 3 miles exhausted. Suffice it to say that the Confederates won this battle. Sturgis didn't help matters, that he'd accepted battle across a creek partitioned into a creek which had a single 16-foot wide bridge over it. It was very steep. The banks were very steep. So in the event that something went wrong, he had a single line of retreat against the river. So he never should have accepted battle. He should have accepted down the other bank of the river. Probably would have done quite well. Unfortunately, he also compounded that mistake by bringing forward all his massive 300 wagon supply train and parking it right across the river. Of course, when the battle started going against the Union and the Confederates started dropping shells into the supply train, the mules and the mule drivers did what most mules do. They panicked, and of course they tried to get to the rear while they started going over this narrow bridge and pretty quickly blocked the bridge by crashing into each other. And now there's nowhere for anybody to go. It just turned into a complete disaster. The 72nd Ohio did well at Bryce's Crossroads as far as they did their duty. They were near the rear guard. They only lost, I think, 1 man killed and 2 or 3 wounded in the actual battle itself. But it was the retreat all the way back to Memphis, which, oh, by the way, is 100 miles away, that just decimated the regiment. I've got some numbers here that might illustrate that for you. So when they went on this expedition, they left June 1st, 1864. There was 396 men in the regiment. When they came back on June 13th and 14th, there was 143 left. They lost 250 captured in the days following Bryce's Crossroads, 1 killed and 2 wounded. So they had almost a 64% casualty rate at Bryce's Crossroads. It gets worse because of those 253 prisoners, 53 of them would die in POW camps, another 6 would die in U.S. custody within days of being released from the Confederates, and then 7 more died aboard the steamship Sultana. So of the 253 prisoners, 66 of them didn't make it. There we go. Let me get this fixed. You're thinking, what does this have to do with John Lemmon? Well, John Lemmon's on court-martial duty back